What's the film about? What's it really about? What genre does it hit? What is really being said? What's really being seen? That's what you're talking about.
Hello, welcome, and fuck off from the Intermission podcast. My name is Nitin Sundar, and I'm as usual joined by my friend who is a new alter ego today. Who are you today, Dodi?
Hi, Nitin. I was going to go with Greg the Egg, but I realized there'd be a massive height discrepancy, so I'm going with Little Lord Fauntleroy.
We are here to review one of our favorite TV shows, Succession, whose 3 seasons have been done, and we are heading into season 4 shortly. So we thought we'll do a quick revisit of what's been going on in the world of Waystar Royco and all the shenanigans that have been happening out there. So Succession is the theme for today's episode. Let's dive right in, Dodi. But before that, what have you been watching recently? Anything you want to chat about?
Yeah, so I watched Creed 3 a couple of weeks ago.
How was it?
It works and doesn't work, but Jonathan Majors is great. Michael B. Jordan allows, given that he's directing as well, it's the first time Michael B. is directing, he allows Jonathan Major to get the more meaty role. I think the screenplay has some problems, but frankly, Michael B. Jordan, actually good director, surprisingly very, very good director, both on the action and on, emotional beats and things like that. This is the first the Rock Universe movie that's missing Rocky. Right. But they have tried some interesting things, and Jonathan Majors I'm always in for. I think this is the year, Creed 3 now, and the week before Creed 3 was Ant-Man, where he's Kang, which he's basically going to be Kang for the next couple of phases. I'm not sure if I mentioned this to you. He had this movie called Magazine Dreams at Sundance, which got a lot of buzz and everything. So already being spoken of as a potential Best Actor nominee for next year. So I feel proud of long back, I pinpointed Jonathan Major and said, this guy is a star, he's going to become a star, and this might be the year that happens. But yeah, that was fun. What about you? What have you been up to so far?
I recently watched Banshees of Inisherin, which I thought was a fairly impactful.
You're all fucking boring.
One boring man, you're all fucking boring. With your piddling grievances over nothing, you're all fucking boring.
Good one. No, yeah, I was quite moved by the film. I thought it was quite impactful. Another movie that I've been ruminating over for the past few days is Mammootty's Lijo Jose Perisseri directorial Nanpakal Nerathu Mayakam, which is actually a Tamil film with a lot of Malayalam in it, and a movie unlike any movie that I've seen so far. And in a strange way, I think both these movies are connected, Banshees and Nanpakal Nerathu. And hopefully, at some point, I'll either write about it or something. Let's see. Yeah,
nice. I know you've told me about Tamil/Malayalam movie. I will pick it up and maybe we can discuss it in more detail once I've watched it, maybe on the next pod.
Absolutely. Let's do that. But before that, let's get into Succession. Dodi, I know you have a lot of notes on this wonderful show. So take us in.
Succession is from Jesse Armstrong. He's a British writer. Have you seen this show called The Thick of It? Or this movie called In the Loop? So he and this other guy called Armando Iannucci, who created Veep later, they basically, the precursor to Veep was this show called The Thick of It, which is about British politician fixer, not a politician, but a fixer in British politics, who's basically full of profanity, who everybody's scared of, and he's the only guy who can get shit done. It's Veep-style comedy, 30 minutes comedy, and it's insane amounts of profanity and, in like very hallowed halls of the parliament and stuff like that. And they did that for a few years, turned it into a movie as well. And finally, Iannucci came over to the US and did Veep. Armstrong, meanwhile, and this comes to Succession, is he written a screenplay about the Murdochs.
Oh, okay.
About,
all right.
This imaginary succession fight inside the Murdoch family.
Right.
which never got picked up, but it went on the blacklist. The blacklist is this. Every year, there's a company which publishes the blacklist, which is the hottest screenplays that for
That
whatever
didn't make
reason
it.
that haven't been picked up, and that has now become a way of funding screenplays as well. They get voted on and whatever else. So this screenplay was on the blacklist, and this was around the time that The Big Short came out with Adam McKay.
Yeah.
And McKay also is coming from, the guy who's made like Anchorman and those kind of comedies, to suddenly going into econ, world-changing financial kind of stuff. He had come out, he had already directed The Big Short. I think they somehow connected between Armstrong and McKay, and it felt like the perfect match. After Big Short, McKay wanted to get into some TV stuff, which speaks to all of these capitalism is a bad thing and all of that, but also with a complete comic kind of bent. And I think what Armstrong has really picked up is politicians rambling in Veep, for example. Not that he did.
Yeah.
He wrote one episode of Veep, but politicians talking a lot and not really saying anything of substance, all fart, no shit, is not very different from tech bros and Kendall and whoever else talking a lot, but having no actual value coming out of whatever they're saying, right? So I think somewhere he found that mix, and that's really the history of the show. They've done 3 seasons so far, and now they just announced that the season they've made is the final season. There are some things around that as well, which I don't think anybody knew it was the final season when it was being made, including the actors. At least I don't know about Armstrong, because Siobhan came out saying, I wish I had known that it was the final season. I might have approached it a little differently. If she didn't know the show was ending, that means whatever end they've written is not like the death of Logan Roy or whatever else, right? Because you might expect that.
Either that or it all ties in the last episode, and that's when everyone realized.
No, but she's spoken now, and the show has been shot for months now, so...
So she found out from the media that the show is ending.
Effectively, yeah. Right. After the show is done. So the ending does not have the definitive feel of an ending or whatever, which I don't know. I guess you can work with things in the edit. Who knows? We'll find out. All right. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the story of Succession, and then we can get into further discussions.
If you are listening to this podcast without having watched Succession, my first question to you is, fuck off. Rather, what really are you doing with your lives? Go and watch Succession. It's one of the best shows ever. But in case you wanted a bit more of a precursor, it's pretty much the script that went to blacklist, I guess. And the names have been changed. It's not openly about the Murdochs. It's about a very Murdochian family, which goes by the name of Roy. The company at the center of this show is called Waystar Royco, which is run by Logan Roy, played by Brian Cox in some style. Logan Roy is this aging patriarch who runs the company, and he has 4 children, 3 sons.
That we know of.
Who are in the show. Let me put it that way. Yeah. 3 sons and a daughter. All of them characters that have been forged by the fact that they are part of the Roy family, that they've been brought up by a fairly abusive and absent father whose focus through life has pretty much been winning and running his company more than anything else. And in fact, even more than that, just feeding his own inflated ego. They're all, tormented and shaped by these experiences, fairly incompetent, at the same time living in extreme luxury with insane amounts of power, delusions of grandeur, ambition, and whatnot. And this, the show is about how these 4 kids are trying to wrest control from the father, even as he's entering the last stages of his life almost. He's aging. He has a lot of health issues through the course of the show. And they're hoping that there will, the succession would happen. And it's about them jockeying for power amongst themselves and against the father.
And with the father as well.
With the father as well.
Also looking for approval from dad. So whoever wins, either by being on his side when he's going out or by kicking him out, wins. That's kind of how it's going.
Exactly. They're looking to win while also seeking validation from their father. So 3 seasons done. We're going into the 4th season now. It's been one of the the best shows on TV, I would say, in the last 3 or 4 years. And the reason why it works for me, at least, is obviously the characters are extremely well written. I believe it's one of those shows, one of the many shows and movies that we've been seeing in recent times, which deal with the one percenters.
We spoke about this.
We spoke about this in our NDA review, where I actually spoke about the third season of Succession as well. And this show takes a very, very interesting, a very cynical ringside view of the one percenters, must be said. And in addition to the characters, I think what really makes this show work is the sharp writing, the dialogues. The dialogue is just gold. There's no other way to put it. It has everything in it. I mean, there's sharpness, there's wit, there's comedy, there's timing, pretty much everything that you would expect. And great production value.
A lot of imaginative use of profanity as well.
He's like a sex robot for dad to fuck.
He's like an old beaten dog.
Well, he's both of those things and also a piece of shit.
One of the most entertaining shows out there.
I've always enjoyed the show, but over the last season at least, I have kind of gotten a little distance from whether it's really Pantheon show or just very good entertainment that happens to be very well acted. And I think we can get into some of my issues with the current version of the show that it is.
In fact, I agree with you there. I agree with you there. I think the material, the way it was set up in the first season and a half, it potentially could have been a Pantheon show, but I don't think it is quite lived up to that. I definitely felt, at least in the third season, some of the beats are just repeating themselves over and over again. And and sometimes the conflicts that are being created in the show are being built up to be such massive ground-shaking events, and then 3 episodes later they just resolve in an extremely tame, lame fashion, which also, by the way, is also a reflection of how the world functions, right? The world of business actually functions too, but I find it a bit of a disappointment when the show resolves to those kinds of escapes. So I agree with you.
Exactly, my problem is that the stakes aren't really there. They pretend like there's stakes and there are no stakes. Nothing much has, for all intents and purposes, nothing much has really changed.
The stakes are rarely well done. They're all very medium class.
double. Well done. I have a very good example of this. And you said like 3 episodes later, but literally the next episode. Do you remember when they had the FBI raid? The episode ended with an FBI raid. And Logan is screaming, saying, "Don't let them in." And fully mad, kick them out. And Jerry is saying, "They're the cops. These are not the people you can kick out. They will bust the door and come in." And finally he says, "Okay, fine." And it's a lot of like quick cuts, full tension. Next episode. If I remember, and I don't remember the later episodes, but the next episode, the way the FBI raid is referred to, do you remember? None of the characters refer to it. It's on the background on a television screen while Kendall and Greg are speaking. In the background, the television screen is saying, yes, some raid happened and something. And nothing much comes out of it. You're right that it's reflective of the real world. But in that scenario, Logan should not get perturbed, right? It's like, okay, come, I'll make 2 phone calls. I'll call the president. He's on my hotline. Then at least be true to the character. Logan's also getting perturbed, but also there's no impact. That is the problem. That's where my disconnect is. If you're saying this is how the world is like and these guys don't care, I'm okay with that. That's fine. That totally makes sense. It tracks. But then they should react like that. Even if maybe Kendall is hoping that the FBI raid will do something. Logan is so confident. He's like, let anyone come in. That would have been at least in keeping with the character. And at least he then knows how the world works.
Exactly.
So that's the kind of problem I've been having.
No, absolutely. I know we are in peak spoiler territory here. So I might as well continue. But one of the biggest smoking guns in the show is the controversy around the cruise lines, where you have, and while that one doesn't resolve in a couple of episodes, it resolves over,
takes a long time.
The course of the next season almost. But it's not that it's resolving in a step-by-step manner. Ultimately, it just resolves, and they're like, okay, they didn't find anything.
And so much of discussion of somebody will go to jail and nobody does.
And nobody
Which
does.
Again,
nobody even comes close to.
Due to the confidence of saying no one will go to jail. That is not for everybody. But maybe Logan saying no one will go to jail because he has that confidence. Maybe the others are not sure. And maybe obviously like somebody like a Tom will still be scared of what if it's me who ends up going to jail. Which can still work. Like all the comedy around Tom can work even while everybody else believes no one is going to jail. But someone like a Tom or a Greg, they've not lived in that wealthy scenario and they don't know that money can buy you anything. You could still have all the comedy of the jail stuff, all that research of jail food.
It won't taste as good as this either, okay? You have to take off 30 to 50% of the taste of that endless salty gym mat that you're eating. Camel's labia.
Yeah, like they wipe their ass on your pillowcase.
I know.
That's something they like to do.
I've read the prison blogs, Greg. I know.
Nonsense that those two do. While having the characters be true to, jail is not a real possibility for anybody at that 1% or 0.1% level, right? So those are the kind of things that slightly irked me, but then I made peace with it in a particular way. So let's come to then the other kind of question that I had, which is this show a comedy or a drama?
Okay. I think.
I have a thought, but go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
It's open.
I do think it's a mix of both, and those are the kind of shows that I love the most. So it's a proper dramedy, I would say, and it doesn't take itself too seriously. It never gets into the drama. Never gets so full of pathos that it becomes serious at any point in time, right? So there is this slightly removed sense of fishbowl experience that you have when you watch the show. That these are terrible people, doing terrible things most of the time. So you don't really sympathize with anybody in this show, whatever shit they're going through, right? And
it's only, I guess, Kendall's acting every now and then where, Jeremy Strong's acting that brings a lot of pathos to that one character. But that's because he's acting at another level. That's not because the show.
But even that is caricaturized by the way the show is set up, right? Kendall is being Kendall, and we all know he got into method acting and all of that, pissed off the rest of his cast and whatnot.
Which we should also briefly do a side
which adds its own level of comedy into that bit. So for me, it's more a comedy than a comedy and a dramedy, I would say.
So I've come down on it's a comedy in a drama. This might sound like a cheat, but it's a comedy in drama dressing, right? It's 1 hour. It looks like it's all serious stuff going on, but it's a comedy. I initially treated it like a drama, and I was looking for stakes and character growth and resolution and stuff like that. And none of that really happened. And once I came down on, this is actually a comedy, then even this stuff with the stakes does not matter. Then you think of a sitcom, you think of a Friends or whatever else, or a Seinfeld, where at the end of the episode, everything comes back to normal. In the episode, it feels like it's the biggest thing, but nothing changes. Next episode is exactly the same. You have to reset to zero.
Interesting point that you raised. Was this assumption that this is not comedy or that this is drama? How did you come to that expectation? Was it just the duration of the show, or was there more to it?
First is duration. Then you look at the actors. Like, these are not comedy actors. You showed me Veep. Even if you told me anything about Veep, if you hadn't told me anything about Veep, just looking at that cast, it's very obviously a comedy. Those are all comic actors. They are improvisers. They are people who come from comedy clubs and stuff like that. But you look here, you've got Brian Cox, who's been doing Shakespeare for like 40 years, 50 years of his career. You have Jeremy Strong, who's this like method. All of the others are legit actors. And, we should talk more about the actors later as well. But the dressing of the show is very much a drama. It may happen to be funny, but the dressing of the show is a drama. Oh, there are stakes. It's like news. These guys are like Fox News. They very quickly got out of the... they never promised that the show would also show the impact of the kind of nonsense they do on everybody else. The fact that ATN is effectively Fox News affects the world in a particular... They've never gone into that, and that's totally fine. They don't have to. They were very clear that this is only about these bunch of idiots in this. But I was hoping that there would be stakes, which there aren't. And for me now, I find it easier to reconcile. I find it easier to not worry about the fact that there are no stakes. If I think of it as a comedy where some nonsense happens, but by the end, everybody is literally back to square A, which is how a comedy functions. And when I say comedy also, I mean traditional your sitcom kind of comedy, right? Where whatever galata happens in the episode, by the end, everything is back to normal. It's not a one-to-one comparison, but it's the way I've reconciled, and I enjoy the show much better. I rate it much higher as a comedy than I do as a drama. Of course, it's got elements of both and all of that. But my personal resting point is, if it's a comedy, I can deal with it easier. if I think of it as a drama, it frustrates me. This FBI stuff and all this frustrates me that you're setting up stakes and not doing it.
I'm very interested by the way you've defined what a comedy and a drama might be. Because now, as you say it, if I think about this show, if I think about Succession, I would not term it as a comedy in the way I see what a comedy is, right?
Yeah.
And just purely by comparing it with all the other comedy shows out there, where lines are written for the laughs and situations are set up for the laughs. There are episodes of Succession where you would not laugh at all. Actually, there aren't, probably.
No,
right?
there
Actually
aren't.
There aren't. But
no, but you're right about not looking for the laugh.
Yeah.
No, and this is a very specific lens I'm putting on the structure and the stakes. I'm taking only the stakes and saying stakes are there or are not there. It's literally that. So I'm taking only one pivot point and jumping. But yeah, go ahead.
The stakes argument, right, which we spoke about earlier also. We have a problem with the way the show proceeds because the stakes that are established as massive are the payoffs of those stakes aren't as massive as they made out to be. That could be just a flaw in the writing and might not be because this is a comedy as opposed to a drama, right? They might have just not been able to shape their stakes better. For whatever reason. And on that same note, Veep has massive stakes, right? Massively well-written stakes too, which really play out over the course of that show. But that show is a comedy, out and out. So I think there are lines that blur.
Sorry, just to jump in on Veep stakes. Veep's stakes.
Sweepstakes.
The massive stakes only happen at certain points where they felt the show needed some. Like for 3 years, she was just, has the president called, president never called. At some point, they were like, okay, this is getting boring. We need to get to the next level. So then the president went out and they made the whole season about the election. And they said, let's get out of this rut. So it was a conscious decision, not of storytelling, but of how many times can we do this where she thinks she's going to become president? Let's actually do the damn election. Okay, fine. So we'll do one season of election. So it was them. You see what I'm saying? It's not the stakes inside each episode. It was them saying, we got bored. Let's do something else. How long can we run with this?
What I also like, by the way, about what I found interesting in what you said is that in a comedy, at the end of the episode, everything returns to status quo. What you're indirectly saying is every episode is self-contained. You can enjoy every show, every episode as it is. You don't necessarily need to follow a through line as you go from one episode to another. Whereas in a drama, you would have to. Which again is an interesting observation, an interesting point. I don't know. We should probably ask the writers what they intended with last time.
And that also brings us back to the other thing, right? These guys are comedy writers who have picked up.
They are comedy writers. Yeah.
That doesn't mean they can't write drama and all that. But I'm just saying I find it easier to match on this slide.
But the way if you look at it also, right? Like if you just look at Logan Roy's character or the lines that he has to do in the show, Brian Cox is obviously a drama legend, and that's how he came into this. But his role is straight out drama, actually, if you think about it. Right? He delivers some very funny lines and all of that. He's part of very funny
The characters think they're in a drama. The characters are not in a comedy. From their perspective, they're in a drama. Everything is...
okay. Got it. Yeah.
But since we were talking about stakes, that's the thing that kind of I came down on. If I think of this as a comedy, it's much easier to not get frustrated with, hey, you made such a big deal about this FBI thing.
No, which is also interesting because, say, 20 years back, you would have not had this confusion because the sitcoms had sitcoms had laugh tracks. Right? You know exactly
things
what a sitcom is. Right? And now the lines are blurred. Right? And ever since the documentary style came, you got Modern Family, which had this very deadpan approach to a comedy, which I think was the first breakout. And The Office, of course, was also there. And now,
there are other comedies that are potentially dramas. There are half-hour things. I mean, the other thing was 30 minutes versus 1 hour.
Is Barry drama or comedy?
So anyway, lines are massively blurred. And this is also in that blurred line only. Like even Barry
has stakes.
Because the story continuously moves forward.
It does, but is it a sitcom? Is it a drama?
No,
where does it land?
That's more of a drama that happens to be funny. This is I know it's a blurring line, but I thought it would be an interesting conversation to see where you land on the comedy versus drama.
A good point.
We were talking about the actors, right? We're talking about Brian Cox being like a Shakespearean legend and all that. Succession is also like chock-a-block with people who come in for like one scene, one episode, and they're all New York theater actors. They're Broadway actors. They're not really screen actors. They're all people who are high legends of theater and Broadway, are Frank, the CEO, whatever role he is currently, which keeps changing week on week or even within the same episode. He's a big theater guy, Broadway guy. Jerry is a huge Broadway actress. Even Sandy is primarily known. I mean, now he's sitting as a vegetable. God knows if he's still around, if he's alive or not in the next season. But he is also a major theater actor. So they've populated it with actors, and
Adrian Brody shows up suddenly.
Adrian Brody shows up. Reed Birney's. You saw Menu, right?
I saw the Menu, yes.
So the Menu is also from the same gang. Mark Mylod is the director of half of the, more than half of the episodes.
Lots of the episodes,
lots if not more. And the old guy couple the guy who gets his fingers cut off.
Yes.
Reed Birney. He's there in one episode in Succession. He's a very famous theater actor as well. He's there somewhere in the middle of the second episode as one of the politicians who comes for some discussion with Logan. But overall, I think very good job on actors and people just performing and them letting people figure out their character as well. I think they didn't really expect Jeremy Strong to go in like full method on this whole thing. But as he started doing that, they were like, okay, fine, you do your thing. Like they allowed Kieran Culkin, as they realized he was good at improvising, they allowed him to like say nonsense in the back of other scenes. So that way, I think the idea of, and this comes back to a couple of conversations we've had before as well, the idea of TV being a bit more of a feedback-based, not just feedback with the audience, but even feedback within the creative. Oh, we wrote 2-3 episodes and somebody did some fun stuff. Okay, the next 3-4
that changes the way the show goes.
And we'll write to those strengths and we'll write to those chemistries. You would not have planned that Greg and Tom would become a pairing, but somehow it worked. They did a few scenes and then you find the thing that makes them connected, right? They're both
really. I think it would have always been the plan. Unless they've come out and said that 100%,
I mean, they haven't said that. I'm just saying that some of these things you come later. I didn't need to pick that as a proven example. But for example, Jesse Armstrong has spoken about, in the vein of Jesse Pinkman and all of those, that Logan Roy was originally supposed to die by the end of the first season. And then they were like, okay, this is just the story that we're in, so we'll continue with this. Now I'm wondering, I mean, Brian Cox is great, but I'm wondering now if they wouldn't have been better off killing him in the first season and having like general havoc for 3 seasons where nobody knows who's on top is also still potentially okay. But anyway, this is what if can be.
Might have been a very different show. I'm thinking about it now. I don't see the show working without.
They hadn't written it, at all. But that's what they had kind of thought.
Interesting. This is like Better Call Saul, right? Where they wanted. They wanted Jimmy to become Saul at the end of first season, and then they decided to not do that. So it's almost like that.
As you start writing, you figure out what you want to do, how many steps you can actually create between point A and point B. So I find those stories fascinating behind the scenes. But here's the thing, right? The show is called Succession. We have not yet had a succession. Like there's a promise in the title of the show, but obviously, but the other way to say it is that when it happens, the show is over. But I don't know that that necessarily needs to be true. Who's your favorite actor on the show? We'll get to characters afterwards, but let's talk a little bit about acting.
Okay. My favorite actor on the show, I will go with Logan Roy. For sure. Because, he just owns every scene that he's a part of it. And in a sense, I guess it also feeds from the character that he plays. He is the alpha dog in every situation that he's a part of. But I think he's just embodied that character so perfectly. Plays that role so pitch perfect well. From an acting perspective, I really love everything that he does on screen. But to be honest, I think the entire cast is fabulous. There isn't a single person. There isn't a single person in the show who looks, miscast or out of their depth at what they're doing. Everyone, including Alan Ruck's girlfriend. Every one of them. And everyone they're playing their characters so having a very good time. I love Alan Ruck. The eldest brother. What's his name?
Connor.
Connor.
Connor for president.
Connor for president. Absolutely. I mean, what a delusional clown. And he plays that role so well, right?
And also in my brief power rewatch that I did, the number of times somebody will be like, Kendall as the eldest son, and he'll give one. I mean, second eldest, of course, you're the eldest. And in the final episode, they actually argue about it as well. He says eldest, somebody says eldest son among the 4 siblings. And this guy gets into a whole fight saying, I'm the eldest son. And he walks away from that table. But no, talking about Brian Cox, right? For me, it's that scene in the boardroom in the first season when that failed takeover attempt happens. Our man Kendall's running the streets. There's not actually a lot of meaningful dialogue that Brian Cox is giving in that scene, but he just stares everyone down. Supposed to leave, they don't let him leave. I mean, they keep asking him to leave. He refuses to leave, and he just sits there and slowly barks at everyone. And he's like, "Oh, you want to say something? What are you going to say? Say." Like, he just like looks at each of them, and that presence and all of that. I think that's, with lesser actors, you would need a lot more dialogue to make that work. But with somebody like a Brian Cox, you're already quaking in your boots just being in the general vicinity, in the radius of attack around Brian Cox.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about Jeremy Strong. Of course, he's doing his full method acting, and I think I sent you a few articles also, but Brian Cox just being like, irritated with this whole method acting bullshit. He's some old school acting is acting. He's in that scenario. I don't know if I told this story on the pod. It's potentially an apocryphal story. But even this method acting and all started in the 70s. Prior to that, it's classical acting. It's a craft. If you have the craft and you're good at it, you can act anything. That's the general understanding of the way classical acting happens. Right? Method will be like full, I have to become the character. And there's a story of, I think it's the Marathon Man, Dustin Hoffman. And Laurence Olivier is playing some Nazi dentist. You might even have heard the story. It's a very famously told story, whether it's true or not. And there's some torture scene or something. So Sir Laurence Olivier, who has been acting for like decades and decades, and Dustin Hoffman is an up-and-coming actor. So Hoffman, the scene is, I think, he's been chased and caught or something. So they have to do that scene. And Hoffman turns up for the shot, and he's like panting and sweating. And Sir Laurence Olivier asks him, what happened? Why are you like sweating? He said, no, I need to be I'm supposed to be just chased and all that. So I ran twice around the park and I came. And Laurence Olivier looks at him and says, next time, dear boy, try acting. Right? So I think Cox is also in the same zone. He's just like, I don't understand these youngsters. Why do they have to do all this nonsense?
I don't know how much of Brian Cox's reaction was the philosophical disagreement with method acting as opposed to Jeremy Strong just being completely unbearable. Completely unbearable on set. Because I imagine spending 24 hours, many months together with the actual OG Kendall Roy. I mean, nobody's going to have fun on that set. Spouting absolute nonsense.
Cox has been outspoken. No? Even at the BAFTA, he was presenting some award. And the other person said, like the banter before presenting the award, the other person said something about actors, this, that, and method acting. Just brought up method acting. And Cox was like, that's all bullshit. Like, gently, that's all nonsense. Acting is acting. There's no method in all of this. So, I mean, old man doesn't give a fuck also. So he just does whatever he wants. But Kendall is good. I mean, and Kendall has this real good sense of his eyes just, when he suddenly goes from trying to be this confident guy to becoming this lost
you can
boy.
see it in his face.
Eyes just start going back into themselves. You watched Americans, right? So Matthew Rhys, there was like a couple of seasons of Americans in the middle where Matthew Rhys would have this really sad look on his face. His lips go down on the sides and he gets this little hangdog look where it's like unbearably sad. And Jeremy Strong also has that moment where he's able to control his lips. The sides of his lips just go down and he looks like tremendously lost and sad. I mean, obviously, great actor. I really enjoy even Roman's physical comedy. Have you noticed Roman, the way, people have called it out now.
He keeps...
he doesn't sit properly in a chair.
He doesn't.
He never sits properly in a chair.
And he wears these extremely tight shirts, straightening his back.
He's always physically responding to the tension in the scene. If he's uncomfortable, you can see him like bending, contorting, trying to lean on something. So everybody's picked up some fun thing that they do. And obviously all performances anyway good. Matthew McFadden also as Tom is again
fantastic.
one of those like in the UK he does like Pride and Prejudice and all of that, so he's that type of actor. So he's come here and they're all giving like I said, they're all giving strong drama performances that also happen to be exceedingly funny.
Yeah. Let's go to characters. No, I mean I think the acting is fine, but who is your favorite Roy sibling?
I have to go with Roman. Most entertaining, to be honest.
I agree. Yeah, it's an easy one. Yeah, true.
Yeah, I have to go with Roman. Most entertaining, but also, and this maybe we can use this to segue. He's comparatively the only self-aware one of all of them. They're all delusional. They all think they're much smarter than they are.
Yeah, Roman knows he's not. Roman knows exactly who he is.
Yeah, and he's much closer. Right. He still thinks he's worth something in the world, which he's not. But at least his delta of what he thinks he is versus what he actually is much lower and less delusional than anybody else. Who are all like completely off the base with their. And that includes Kendall as well.
No, it absolutely includes Kendall. Kendall is a full-on puff piece.
Yeah,
but Roman actually is also the smartest of the lot. When he actually gets down to doing work,
when he says things, he's the only one who actually says correct things when he ends up saying
it. And when he puts his mind to it, he gets down to the bottom of things that he's talking about. So
somebody was making this comparison to The Godfather. Okay, where
the final scene
obviously is very Godfatherish. But also, if you just take like Godfather and kids and you say, okay, Brian Cox is Godfather. Of course, Roman is very easily Fredo. But to be fair, everybody's Fredo. There's really
everybody's Fredo. Yeah.
Everybody's Fredo. They're just different versions of Fredo, but they're all idiots who think they are way smarter than they are. Kendall especially. And I think that was the other problem for me in the first few episodes. Jeremy Strong's thing was not hitting for me, and I don't know what it was. Now I know what it was. It took me a while to realize. I was expecting him to be the prince or the stud who would prove his dad or whatever. And it only took me until this failed takeover episode when I realized, this guy is actually, like, I don't know, maybe I wasn't watching it correctly. In hindsight, now if I watch those episodes, it might be more obvious. But I initially came into it thinking, okay, this is he's the real successor who's going to be the stud, then whatever. So I was approaching it very straightforwardly. He's genuinely incompetent. And that's the performance. And then like even Jeremy's performance really fit in. Jeremy, every time he speaks also, anytime he's given the opportunity to, there's a scene where Brian Cox asks him also, what are you going to do if you take over? Yeah. And he just like, he's like, we'll do some, like and even in the first season, a lot of his dialogue, if you start stripping out, is a lot of mumbling. It is mumbo jumbo when it's actually words, but there's also a lot of he's just struggling to even string together a sentence.
No, I was saying if you look at the title track, it sort of gives away what the storyline is going to be, because you have this dad who is trying to, culture his kids, obviously introduce them to the good things, the big things, the important things. So he's getting them to go on ponies, he's getting them to play tennis. But there's also the scene right in the middle of that song where the father is hunched and walking away in a distance, right? It's clearly the walk of a father who is disappointed with his progeny.
Yeah.
And there is then this group photo that happens in the end with the kids. The kids are all looking at the dad very longingly, especially the supposed anointed successor, which is Kendall, obviously.
Yeah.
And then as Kendall's looking at him...
By the way, even here, Connor missing.
Yeah, true. I think that title song is brilliant, right? It also has Sarah Snook walking with a dog which looks bigger than her. It's very... very symptomatic and emblematic of what their lives are going to be. And I think that last scene is just the perfect one, right? Because the father just slowly walks out of the frame and the camera pans to Kendall, who's just looking at his dad, looking for that approval from his dad. So, which is why I feel that I can't imagine this show if Brian Cox had died at the end of the first season. I don't know what the show would have been. It probably would have jumped the shark very early. I don't think he'll die. I don't think he'll die by the end of the
season. He's not dying because I think now as a prediction we know because...
Pretty sure he's not dying,
No, so two, three things coming out of there. First, we'll just quickly sidebar into the credit sequence for two things. One, have you seen the game, David Fincher? The game,
I have
Michael
long
Douglas.
back. Yeah.
So Michael Douglas keeps watching old footage of his parents, Sean Penn and him, and as a kid, he's roaming around. That is exactly like this. I'll find a clip online, but they look the same. The opening credits of this, it's shot with that old thing. It's these vignettes of some photographs, some horse riding. It's almost entirely the same. Obviously, this is shot again, but it's if you put those two side by side, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference. It's clearly influenced by that. But the other thing I want to talk about is very quickly Nicholas Britell's theme. Like great music, great.
Yeah.
Keeps coming back, very perfectly done. Like solid work there, right? And I find myself humming the.
Yeah, same here. And it's one of those songs that I never skip if I'm watching the show. Also because it doesn't come right at the start, it comes a couple of minutes in.
Yeah,
and you've sort of built up beautifully to it, and I want to then listen to it at that point. It's one of the most organic, like title tracks in TV shows that I've seen. Yeah, I love it. Yeah,
Brittle doing some great work there, and every time he comes up with something good, even his movies, all of that, he does very good stuff. They're looking for their dad's approval, right? And Brian Cox, there's one time, I just want to bring this up about his character, is that there's one time he properly gives Kendall a hug, and he gives the kind of dad approach, which is the end of the first season after all of that.
After he finds out. Yeah.
You're my number one boy, you're my boy, you're my number one boy, and he hugs him, and Kendall is crying and whatever else.
Yeah.
But even that, I mean, it was never meant to be genuine, but it's completely manipulative, right? He's also...
Yeah, no, that's basically when he finds
currency. Out. But even his hugging his son is a currency that he's paying out to get the thing that he wants, right? He's not even... there's no genuine, like, my son feels bad, so I need to hug him. It is basically...
No, it's absolutely not. It's, I know your secret and you're forever going to be my slave now.
Yeah, that's what it's
it. That's what it is.
And also, I mean, we all remember that line. You remember that you're my number one boy, and him crying. That's how the episode ends. Think of it, that's how the episode ends, which is a powerful way to end the episode. But that's not actually the last line of that episode. The last line of that episode is in that scene only. He's hugging, he's crying, he says, you're my number one boy. And then he says, Colin, and that bodyguard fixer guy comes in.
Yeah.
And he gets him to take him away.
You're my boy. You're my number one boy.
I'm sorry.
No. Colin?
Yeah. Which is a very, okay, now my transaction...
my job is done.
On to my 10:30 meeting. Colin, please bring in the next person or whatever.
Deal with this.
Please take this guy and go and bring in the next. So it's very transactional. It ends with that. So when you think you're watching potentially a tender moment, even if it is mixed with some machination, no, it is only manipulation. It's only machination. It's only transaction. There's nothing else. Which then brings me to the next thing, right? So what is winning for these characters? Is it getting their father's approval? Is it actually taking over the company? Remember that in the end of the third season, when they say, what will you do with this extra 5 billion if you don't sell now? Put it on a pile with the rest of the billions. And he says, why don't you make your own fucking piles?
Yeah.
What is your idea of what is a win for these kids? What is it that they're really winning? Do they want to win the company? Do they want to win dad's approval?
I think they want to win the company because they have been craving the dad's approval all through. And I think that's the only thing that matters to them. They obviously are living very comfortable lives. There's no existential threat or risk or anything of that sort. They're anyway far removed from the realities of the world and all of that. And they don't really,
even if they don't
even care.
They still have the money. I mean, they still own the company. They're just not the CEO. So it's some random.
Yeah. No, so that's the thing. Right?
Of power which they don't know how to wield.
they have always lived in money, right? So it's not like money is not something that they earned and have learned to appreciate. So money is pretty much their default state.
Yeah, default status.
So it's not any different from what they were, 10 years before or whatever. What they have never
I'm
had.
saying they'll still hold this. They'll also still hold the shares.
They will have all of that.
Maybe they're as rich as they'll be. It's just a matter of some bragging right of being able to say we are in control of the company or we are the CEO, which also no idea that they're.
Your question is, what are they trying to do at the end of season 3 or what are they trying to do in general? Because the end of season 3 chart is a bit different, right?
Yeah. No, both. But anyway, go ahead. So let's come to what they're really craving. Like, what would you say they have won if they won? If we had to say at the end of the show, kids or one of the kids has won.
I don't think they can win together. I don't think they can win together. And I don't think any of them is going to win. But I think victory is one of them, for any of them to become the head of Baystar Royco would be a win. Because that would be them proving to their siblings, I believe, and also more importantly to their father that they have
something
that they're worthy of.
We have your blood in us or whatever.
That's pretty much the only thing that they've not achieved in life, right? See, everything in life has been handed down to them, free of cost, right? Even the respect that they get from someone like a Jerry or any of the others in that group, or anyone, even the biggest politician in the world, the president of the United States, is all a dole that they've received because of whose kids they are. The only person who can actually give them real respect is their father. And they know
who has systematically withheld it ever and ever forever, even when they were kids.
For multiple reasons. I mean, he has withheld everything from them. He has withheld love from them. Why he's withheld respect from them is very obvious. They aren't worthy of respect. They aren't worthy of his respect, but they are also the way they are because of him. But that's what it is. I think the only reason they've been jockeying for power and you keep seeing that, right? Like the show does this beautiful thing with cameras throughout, right? Where it suddenly zooms into some face.
Micro expression. The
micro expression thing. And you very often see that zoom in happen specifically with Sarah Snook, right? With Siobhan's face.
Because
often her eyes are looking at her dad to see.
And Brian Cox, not Brian Cox, but Logan Roy knows when to. She's the most easily playable of all three.
She's the most easily playable.
When he says, "You're my little girl, come here, why don't you do this for me?" She completely melts. She's the most like daddy's little girl, unable to push back against any little bit of affection. At least the other two are, Roman is a little bit like aloof, and Kendall now over time has realized that he can be manipulated. He still gets manipulated, but he also has some distance. But she has none. She can see it for others, but she can't see it for herself.
She can't see it for others.
Always falls for it.
Exactly.
And falls for it like a little girl. Absolutely correct. Well got.
And she plays that so well also, right? Showing that vulnerability of how easily she can be turned by her dad. And she has a very, very expressive face, right? So you see that manifest in that way in her. In Kendall, you get the sense of someone who has been trying his entire life. Right. You don't get that feeling, by the way, with Siobhan, because she's not had to try very hard. But she had delusions of being very close to getting that respect. This guy, on the other hand, Kendall knows that respect is not easy to come by. He spent an entire life pushing against that wall, failing repeatedly.
And he's the one who's been straightforwardly following in his dad's footsteps. She was in politics, is that she had tried something else and then eventually...
She's tried to get his attention by doing other things. Right? And Kendall has been trying to do it straight and narrow, pushing hard, just not good enough, right? Someone who knows he's not good enough, but he's just trying to put hard work and get there. Roman, like we said, is the most self-aware of the three. And probably doesn't care so much for it also, but he does. In fact, his character turn in the last episode of season 3 was, I would say, one of the more surprising ones for me through the course of the show. The fact that he actually banded together with the siblings right at the end.
He struggles also, no? He refuses to get in the car itself. He's like standing in the car. He's like twisting and like, Roman, get in the fucking car.
But after he gets in, he's fully into it, right? And even in the last scene, he is the one that...
fully into it, he gets, like, even in the car, he has to be convinced. He's like, oh, fuck, okay. Okay, fine. I mean, it's constantly like...
You're right.
He's the most vocally, like, stuck between... We don't want to...
But let me say, from the moment they get out of the car...
he's fully in. Yes.
He's fully in, and he even says, okay, don't pull off a Bali on me or whatever, right? Because that's where he was left
because I'll go in and you guys will fuck off.
And it falls on him again inside, because the first person that Logan tries to break is Romulus,
He's
right?
like, come Romulus.
And he holds steadfast. Which
He
I thought was
holds and he begs. He says,
he
please.
holds, he begs,
Dad,
and he's dead now. He's dead as.
In fact, that scene ends with him on the floor, and Kendall is like he's sitting on the ground holding the table, and Kendall is
a reversal of the earlier scene.
Yeah.
Dad, please.
Please?
Please.
The seat sniffer gets a fucking leg up. That's the deal. What have you got in your fucking hand?
What have I got? I don't know. Fucking love?
Love? You come for me with love. You bust in here, guns in hand, and now you find they've turned to fucking sausages. You talk about love?
Who is your favorite non-sibling character in the show?
Man, it keeps going. There are so many pinch hitter players who keep coming in and going out.
No, the main cast. Main cast.
I genuinely, and this will be a cheat, but I genuinely enjoy Frank and Carl's tennis match that's constantly going on.
Yeah.
Where they are the balls in that tennis match getting fucked. When I say tennis match, I don't say between them, but they're like, I don't want to be the ball in this game. Movement, and their musical chairs of which ball is getting played right now. Whether it's me or you.
The speech that this guy has to give in that in the urinary tract infection episode, which goes on and on and on, that without a speech, right? Without knowing what he's speaking. I think it was Frank.
Insane.
And it just keeps going on. No, we definitely need to dedicate at least 3 to 4 minutes of this episode to Tom Wambsgans and to
of course,
cousin
I think
Greg.
he's good point.
Yeah,
and Greg, sure, but I think Wambsgans is actually doing a number of things. Like he's again playing a highly dramatic role in the middle of all this galata. Like he's like
fabulous
broken.
character. Yeah,
he knows that his wife doesn't love him. He knows that he's an outsider in this family. He knows that he has no other value except somehow making this work. He's like struggling on multiple levels. Greg is still more of an not out and out, but it's easier to slot him as comedy. It's easier to slot him as an extraneous character who happens to be around doing some galata. Once in a while, he's useful because he has kept some papers instead of shredding them. So he's like timely, happens to be around with the right information at times. But Tom is the most truly toned character in the show. And of course, McFadden just gets all of that out and even makes the meanness seem like a byproduct it's a result of everything else. He's picking up meanness from everyone else and he's putting it onto Greg. He's the punching bag for them, for the family, and Greg is his punching bag. When he gets bajawed by Shiv, he comes and fucks Greg over. You can always see his meanness being a response to what has happened to him, like literally the scene before or whatever.
And his arc in season 3 is what sets up the final showdown, right? He's been trying so hard, but he genuinely loves Shiv, right? Throughout this show, and she has not given him anything. Like she has nothing but contempt for him. Right? He's just a tool.
The way he refers to that open marriage thing when he talks about it later on that island in the end of season 2.
I hope I'm less sad without you than I am with you.
So he has both.
I wonder if the sad I'd be without you would be less than the sad I get from being with you.
It's like a heartbreaking line. But in the literally same scene, in that shot, in fact, he says,
"Okay, on our wedding night." Bang! Shanghaied into a open borders free fuck trade deal.
Who is referring to an open marriage as an open borders free fuck trade deal? Like the business jargon in the middle of this relationship thing. In one scene, he manages to do both, and he hits both perfectly. Which all are capable of, but he is the one I think who really gets to exercise the range of that thing.
Because there is also there is the scene where they role play, which cuts too close to the bone. right?
Yeah.
Because he's like, okay, like how much of this is real? Is this exactly what she thinks about me? And you see that, and he plays this so well, right? The close-ups on Matthew McFadden's face, where he shows the sadness every time Sarah Snook cuts him off, let's say.
Yeah.
And you know that it's building up. He's been so loyal to her right through, and he's not got anything in return. In fact, she hides stuff from him, right, proactively, right through the 3 season. Not just on the personal side. She hides information that could be of use for him. She isn't looking out for him at all, right? She's absolutely has no trouble with him being the one who will go to jail until he goes and asks her, "Can you make sure I'm not the one going to jail?" So, the build-up to why he would eventually stab her in the back is totally justified, right? And totally well played. You still don't see it coming. I didn't see it coming in that scene.
I didn't see it coming. If I had to guess, and even now when I was watching, if I had to guess, I would have thought at the last second Roman would refuse to stand with them and stand on the other side.
So, they'd already done that, right? They'd already done that. So there'll been a cheat.
Not like the show has not repeated itself, like we said.
That is true. That is true.
Also, but here's the other thing. Through the last couple of seasons, at least, Shiv had Tom, who has flipped over. Kendall took Greg with him and went off. Greg also has flipped over and is standing on the other side. And Roman has been like trying to get Jerry to be his mentor or whatever they're thinking on.
Whatever that is.
Whatever that is. And totally difficult to put a name on it. But she also at some point she always knew this, but at some point she gave up. She was genuinely trying to like help mold him into something useful. Like, okay, this is like pointless. Like, let me just not even bother. So all 3 of their quote unquote confidants, somebody that they would have counted as being on their side or could have been on their side, all 3 of them have flipped over completely to the other side. Again, we say flipped over completely. I would not be surprised if this new episode of the next season starts
everything
with,
is
reversed and whatever 3 months later and anything.
Exactly. And that's my issue. That goes back to the point you made about the show. At the end of the episode, they very easily reset things. And at the end of seasons, they absolutely could do it. Right? You could have all 3 siblings bickering with each other again, right at the start of the next season. And you'll be back to doing exactly what you were doing. And and typically I've seen the first 2 or 3 episodes of Succession seasons tend to start off slowly.
Yeah, it's fine. And the dialogue is crackling, the acting is good. So for me, it is like I'm watching a comedy and this is like very good acting comedy. So it's fine. That's my, like, let me not think what stakes.
Broadly, I agree. I don't really care where it's going, really, which is also
I'm along for the ride.
I'm along for the ride,
in fact, apparently this season starts with what's his name? Logan's birthday, which is mirroring the first season. It was his birthday in the first episode. And
the surprise party.
Yeah. That's when he gets a stroke or whatever. So this is again starting with his birthday. So we are back in a full circle. You want me to do a little history corner for 2 minutes? Armstrong is trying to hit when we're talking about 1%ers and not having consequences. The entire Kendall killing or being instrumental in killing in the death of that waiter is a repeat of what happened in Chappaquiddick in the late 60s. If you have not heard the story, I'll do a quick Dodi's history corner.
Go for it.
For today, Little Lord Fauntleroy's history corner. So, Chappaquiddick is a place somewhere in Northeast. It's one of those rich people towns or whatever. But basically, it's called the Chappaquiddick incident. What happened is Ted Kennedy, the younger brother of John F. Kennedy and Robert Kennedy, was also in politics, wanted to be something. One night, he was out. He was, in fact, the Senate Majority Whip or something. 1969, I think, just before 70.
Okay.
He was driving with some girl in the car. They crashed. He came out. Girl drowned. He's gone back home, changed everything. Next day, they figure out it's his car. So I don't know what he thought he was doing. And nothing happened. He got a 2-month suspended sentence for that girl having died in his car. And he ran for politics, everything. It is known as the story that that cost him the presidential runs. Because 72, he didn't run for president when he would have normally run. 76, he didn't run. 80, he tried to run for the Democratic ticket, but Carter or somebody beat him and became president, or I don't know what happened. But basically, he never became president. But it was on the line of like in the Kennedy family, in the whatever. And this guy has basically killed someone. It's not even, we're not even seeing like some imaginary thing. This has literally happened more or less in the same way. They were coming back from a party, that girl drowned inside. And then there are other suspicions around it. Also, she was in the back seat. Some people are not, it's not 100% clear what was happening. This is a repeat of that. They're just showing that rich people, consequences, these two don't really go together. The idea of consequences and rich people doesn't really match. Even Roman says, no, when which of us hasn't clipped a clip with the art? It's almost a rite of passage, which is very true. So I think, which by the way, we have those stories in India as well, without taking names here. Any interesting lines you want to bring up? We spoke about "Sad I'd Be Without You," which was actually a very powerful line, in my opinion.
Well, there is the whole rap, right?
Yes, L to the OG. What I love about that is not just the rap, right? So that is anyway
the reactions,
everybody reacting and not knowing how to react, and Roman just being like, "Is this really happening?" And at some point, he's like, "Okay, this is happening. Fine, I'll fucking enjoy it." And they're like,
"Is he about to strip?"
I think he's going to masturbate on stage to a photo of Dad.
My boy Squiggle cooked up this beat for me. Check it. Born on the North Bank, king of the East Side, 50 years strong. Now he's rolling in a sick rod, handmade suits, raking in loot. 5-star general, yo, best salute. Yo, bitches be mad, but the king is down.
NWA.
I read it. It is burning my eyes, but I cannot look away.
L to the OG. Dude be the OG.
So embarrassed for him, but also laughing at him. Like there's a lot going on in it. The show does a good job of reactions from people who are not technically in the scene or have a dialogue. What you were talking about earlier. You'd say one line, but you're showing reactions from 4 different characters, all of whom are reacting differently. And you're just catching that one little bit of their
I don't think, I can't think of another show that does that as well as the show.
I mean, not in this, but for me, this started with Friday Night Lights. They pioneered this style of 3... And I can say this, they pioneered the style of having 3 handheld cameras in every shot. And they would do the same scene 2-3 times, and sometimes the camera would, would give free rein to the camera to do whatever. So you'll find the camera suddenly going to someone's hand trembling, or somebody, even things, and the entire close-up is on the hand of the person who, not the person who's talking, but the person who's reacting. But they'll catch something in that movement. So they would do 3-4 rounds of the scene and catch all sorts of different things and then cut it together. So it started there.
Well, that's pretty cool.
They do it really well here. These guys really do a good job. And especially this show runs on how do we get maximum number of people into one room and then have everybody fucking playing off each other, right? They enjoy creating those situations and then having all these energies competing, which allows for many people to react to many things.
Yeah, that's true.
And that boat, when they are trying to decide who should be the sacrificial lamb, that conversation that they have, where everybody keeps well, I think, Frank, because then Frank's like, thank you. But, from my point of view, because I already backstabbed you, I will not look like that big anyway, so I think maybe somebody who is actually a loyal servant will feel so everybody is passing it this side, that side. They're all fighting for their lives, but it's
lovely scene,
high levels of farce and galata going on. What lines, any particular line?
Definitely this one, right? With Greg's line during the deposition.
Gregory Hirsch, executive assistant to Tom Wamsgans, correct?
Yes. Yes, if it is to be said.
I'm sorry?
If it is to be said, so it is.
Are you all right?
Yes. That one. By the way, Greg and that height and all of that, for me, is very reminiscent of Jonah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But In the Loop has one character like that. So both Jesse Armstrong and Armando Iannucci have taken their own tall, bumbling oaf into their, those are their versions of that. In this episode, just as that wedding is happening, the final episode, just as the mother's wedding is happening and she's walking into the chapel, Shiv and Roman and Tom are standing next to each other. And she was making fun of Roman. Are you going to go stop the wedding? Because you know, like she's doing that whole Oedipal thing.
Yeah.
And she says,
Hey, Rose, I have an idea. When they come past, you should tell Mom that you love her.
Nah, fuck off.
No, how romantic would it be? Imagine that. If you could marry Mommy on her wedding day.
Yeah.
Or tell him a reason they can't be married. Because she's the only one who makes her son's pee-pee go boom-boom.
which is the most ridiculous way to say it. First of all, saying it itself is funny, but makes your pee-pee go boom-boom.
Yeah.
It's like
the way you say it.
But to be honest, there are like 10 lines like this in every episode which you could write.
Yeah.
I think it's an embarrassment of riches in that sense. If you had to start counting lines, you could write lines in every episode.
Absolutely. And I think the specific subplots around Roman sexuality are probably require a thesis on their own. Like absolutely, like I don't know where all this shows goes with him.
No, but even leaving out profanity and leaving out like sexual stuff also. The show has been very great with certain kinds of, like I was rewatching the episode where literally the second episode when he's had the stroke and they're in the hospital and they're running around. Jerry comes and takes Kendall into one side room and says, we have set up a control room here. If anything happens, we need to be ready to announce stuff. And just today he fired Frank and he made Roman the CEO. And he says, but there's no paperwork, right? So we don't have to, like, we can say that his stroke started earlier in the day. And in typical Kendall Roy fashion, he says, I mean, it's just words, right? And words are what? Complicated airflow. Words are complicated airflow is such a amazing line. And again, the way to think of how meaningless can you make something that in theory has meaning? If you just refer to it as, it's some air came out of my mouth.
It's also very self-referential coming from this guy.
Yeah, from him. Everything is complicated airflow.
Yeah.
Fine, let's get to our last segment. Predictions. Logan's not going to die, number one.
Yeah, Logan's not going to die. And Logan's going to remain... Either Logan's going to remain in control or he's going to be taken away to the gallows or something of that kind. But the entire company has crumbled in the process and none of the kids has gotten a share of anything. And in fact, that's very possible. The company crumbles and they go bankrupt and
everything goes out of.
Everything goes to pot, but Logan doesn't die on screen or off screen.
I earlier would have gone with this. I would, but now knowing that Sarah Snook didn't realize the show had ended, I'm tempted to think it's an ending which has a potential life goes on. So I feel it's probably something like what they were afraid of in this season. Gojo takes over, one of those kinds of things where Gojo fully takes over.
But that's my whole point, right? If you look at it that way, season 3's ending is very complete. If you want to end, that's the whole thing. So, and similarly, the company going bankrupt and going down at the end of season 4 is complete or incomplete, the way you want to. It's very, if they wanted to, it was something they could have.
But company going completely bust has some poetic ending to it where you're talking about succession, but there's nothing to succeed to.
Succeed.
I like that as a poetic ending anyway. I do feel, and this is how regular people watch a show, right? Which is what I was asking you earlier about, do they want their dad's approval? What is winning? Is it getting dad's approval? Is it getting the company, which may or may not be intersecting at the same time? Or is it winning for their character and not for their conscious character, but a win for that character is actually breaking free from their dad, which they don't realize they need to do. I'm not talking about the characters.
True. Yeah.
I'm saying from our perspective, if all three of them said fuck you to Logan Roy and left,
they're not going to do that.
They're not going to. But as an audience, we could see that as a win. Potentially.
Yeah.
But that's
maybe.
Us trying to put a morally good thing on this, which we would have. Yeah.
No, but we would also only feel that way if we actually empathize with any of them, which we don't.
Correct.
So,
we don't.
Yeah, so we actually want them to continue to suffer. That's the reality. We don't want any of them to win. I don't think anybody is rooting for Roy or Shiv or Kendall to win. That's the beauty of the show, right?
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean, there was some possibility earlier that they could have killed off Jeremy Strong, but I don't think that's happening either.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's dying.
It's going to be this kind of like, they think they're getting it, but it sideswipes into someone else.
Maybe one of the side characters dies. Cousin Greg might die.
That's another possibility. It's a bit out there. Cousin Greg finishing his way to the top accidentally by doing some Hajar nonsense.
That's not going to happen. No. I mean, unlikely. It would be
that is too much of a comedy, and that's a weekend, not this. That's only Jonah becoming the president accidentally.
Yeah, if it has to be an outsider, I hope it's Tom.
Tom might be interesting.
That I can get behind. Yeah,
Tom's actually a good one. If Tom makes it, it is both a succession within the family, but also outside the family, where Tom gets to say fuck you to all of these people who've been like fucking around.
He won't. He'll boss over them. I don't know. It'll be fun to watch.
No, that's what he will. Yeah, he gets to be able to say that if he wants, but he gets to basically control them the way they've been controlling them.
Control them, yeah.
And that will be a good reversal for Sarah Snook and him. And Greg obviously makes it to a nice position. Greg is loyal second man. Yeah. Okay. So let's see what happens with Succession. We're pretty excited. Looking forward to Sunday night, I guess, so Monday morning for everybody. By the way, with the HBO dropping out of Hotstar, not sure how our listeners in India will be watching Succession. But I hope that gets resolved soon. Nevertheless, super excited to get the show back. Any last thoughts, Nitin?
No, nothing else. I would just ask our listeners who have not watched Succession to fuck off.
Yes.
And watch it fast before season 4 drops.
At this point, I don't think there's enough hours left to wait out. No, there are enough hours. It's only 3 seasons and it's 10-10-9 if I'm not wrong. So yeah. Physically possible.
It really depends on when we are going to publish our episode. But it's okay. But it's okay. It's okay if the season started. Still go and watch the first 3 seasons.
Yeah.
And binge all the episodes together at the end of it.
Very enjoyable show. And maybe we can revisit once the show is over as well. Let's see if any of our predictions came true. If anything really changed. Did the show get some stakes? We'll find out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you everyone for listening. Let us know what you think of this episode. Let us know what you think of our show. Please tweet at us at yointermission on Twitter, and you could send us an email at yointermission@gmail.com. That's it from Nitin and me, signing off. See you hopefully in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. If it is to be said, so it be, so it is.
Little Lord Fauntleroy is signing off.
Little Lord Fauntleroy
has left the call.
Meeting over. Fuck off.
Fuck off.
Fuck off.
Fuck off.
Fuck off. Fuck off.
Oh, fuck off. Fuck off.
Just fuck off.
Fuck off, thanks.
Fuck off.
Fuck off. Fuck off. How about you fuck off? You fuck off. If you can't do it, fuck off. What are you waiting for? A kiss? Fuck off. Be gone. Bye-bye.